Hey Beatle people, how's everybody doing? I know it's been a little while since I've made a video, so I thought I'd put this little one together. As a lot of you know, if you've been following my channel, I live in kind of a small apartment. And so a lot of my Beatles memorabilia and other sentimentals and collectibles are stored in boxes, and I've done a couple of segments called What's in the Box? So this is kind of like What's in the Box, but not really. These are items that were in boxes, but I had been wondering where they were, and they weren't specific Beatle boxes. You know when you think, okay, I'm gonna keep something safe, so I'm gonna put it here, and it's really weird and obscure, and you can never remember where you actually put it? That's kind of what happened to me and with some of these pieces. So I had been trying to find them for a while now, and I dug through some of the boxes, and I'm happy to say that I found these items. First, starting off with my Beatles, the US albums CD box set. I have been looking for this for like 2 years, and I'm happy that I found it in one of my boxes. For those of you that don't have this box set, it came out in 2014, and it's actually the second time that the Beatles US albums were actually released on CD. If you guys remember, a few years earlier, I can't remember exactly when, the Beatles released the Capitol album volumes. I only have volume 1. I never had a chance to get volume 2, but when this came out, that kind of scratched all that, because you have every single one of them in this lovely, lovely box. And believe it or not, in the 4 years that I've had this, I've not played a single one of them. So it comes with this cool little booklet. I like the back where it has the Capitol promo for the Beatles are coming. And there's this nice little book. Flippy flippy. And of course it comes with all of the CDs, where it's kind of like a replica of the actual albums. Here's the Beatles' second album, A Hard Day's Night. And no, I'm not gonna open it to show you what the CDs are like. Well, maybe I will in a minute, because I've actually never opened them. You have the Beatles story even. Beatles 65. My favorite album cover ever, the early Beatles. This is probably my favorite photo of the Beatles ever. Beatles 6. The Help soundtrack. But the coolest one is Yesterday and Today. And okay, so I take back my previous statement. This is the only one I've ever opened. Why? Because it's a slipcover. What? Isn't that neat? So it comes with this little insert, but of course this is the true cover for Yesterday and Today. So since I've opened this one here, I'll use it as an example. So it comes out like the actual Capitol sleeves in there. And there's the album in this little itty bitty bit of plastic. So it's really cool that all of them come with the little miniature inner sleeves and all that good stuff. I think this is the closest I'll ever get to actually having a butcher cover. Then you have Rubber Soul, Revolver, and then of course Sgt. Pepper Magical Mystery Tour, the White Album, all, you know, were the same in the UK and in the US. And then it all ends with the Beatles again, aka Hey Jude. So it's a really cool box set. If you can't afford the actual albums, in near mint condition. I highly recommend doing it this way. This next little piece I have is actually from a very good friend of mine and former co-worker, my friend Andrew. And I guess he found this, and before he decided to up and leave me and move to Wisconsin, he was kind enough to give me this Beatles poster. It is an actual NEMS poster. I want to say this is around circa 63, 64. Unfortunately, the top left-hand corner here is torn off, but this poster is just so cool, and I can't wait to get it framed one day. Andrew, thanks again. I miss you, buddy. I love this poster. Isn't it neat? This next piece that I've also been looking for 2 years was in the same box as the Beatles US albums box set, and is my copy of John Lennon and Yoko Ono's. I believe I have a US pressing. I am not going to take this out of the sleeve for everybody's sake. We've all seen it. No need to see it again. But I would like to thank the gentleman that gave this to me. This would actually go into one of the videos that I started with gifts my guest gave me. There's a gentleman that I believe lives in New Jersey, and he took my tour years ago and came back months later specifically just to give this to me. I believe the story goes is that he was at the boardwalk in Ocean City, Maryland, and saw somebody selling like a ton of copies of this. And so he bought a few. These have never been played, and they probably never will be played. I really honestly have no interest in actually putting this on my record player. But it's pretty cool to say that I do own a copy. Of course, you have side 1 here, side 2 on the Apple label, never been played copy of John and Yoko's Two Virgins. All right, guys, this very last piece is really sentimental to me and goes along the lines of gifts my guest gave me. So in April of 2012, when I first started working at Hard Rock, I met a gentleman named Paul Griggs. If you live in the UK, you probably recognize the name Paul Griggs for his work in the 1970s group Guys and Dolls. Paul is an amazing guy and is still a musician till this day, and wrote a great book called Diary of a Musician. And so after the first time I met Paul and I took him on a tour, we stayed in touch, and he came back about a year or so later and surprised me with this great little gift. So this says Love and Peace from John and Yoko, and on the back is the lyrics to the Hare Krishna little, mantra. You kind of see it. Now there's a really great story behind this sucker. So there was a gig that the Plastic Ono Band did, and forgive me for the pronunciation of the theater, but I want to say it's the Lyceum Ballroom in London. If I mispronounced that wrong, I'm so sorry. And this was December 15th, 1969, where the Plastic Ono Band played for UNICEF. And the Plastic Ono Band, and then some, I should say, because it was John and Yoko, Eric Clapton, Billy Preston, Keith Moon, Klaus Vormann, and George Harrison played at this UNICEF fund. And I guess before performing, John and Yoko, by hand, threw these into the audience. And Paul was able to grab a bunch of these and was so kind enough to give one of these to me. It's probably one of the coolest pieces of memorabilia that I've got, and I will cherish it forever. Paul has a lot of amazing stories about his life as a musician, and of course, actually being able to see the Beatles in person and being a member of the Beatles official fan club in the 60s. To get Paul's book, Diary of a Musician, you can go to www.paulgriggs.com. I highly recommend it. He's got the best stories you could ever hear from someone who was actually there, kind of from a fan perspective, and then to eventually be a successful musician. Two songs that the Plastic Ono Band did that night were Cold Turkey and Don't Worry Kyoko. And these two songs were actually later put on the album sometime in New York City. So this is actually from that gig, touched by John and Yoko themselves. And now it's being touched by me, which is pretty incredible. So Paul, if you're out there watching, thank you so much. I miss you. Come back and visit me again sometime. If this is your first time over here on my channel, please hit that subscribe button. I try and put out new and interesting videos as often as I possibly can. Sometimes it takes me a while to think of a good one though. You can also follow me on Facebook and on Twitter. And until next time, guys, as always, peace and love. See ya.